The air inside the orbital laboratory was thick with the smell of ozone and old coffee. It was a temporary, low-profile facility, built to float just outside the Earth's protective space zones, where prying eyes from off-world traders could not easily look. Inside, Dr. Alex Finch wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead. He was a physicist, pale and tired, and the last 3 years of his life had been spent proving that everything he had ever been taught about the cosmos was wrong. Engineer Laura Bell, the project head, stood beside him. She was the one who had taken Alex's complex math and turned it into steel, wiring, and a pulsing core of exotic matter. Laura looked at the chronometer, then at Alex. They did not need to speak. They were far past the need for small talk or long instructions. All that was left was the final, irreversible action. The starship, named the Icarus, was small, more like a test capsule than a proper warship, but it held the future of human expansion. It sat silently within its docking cradle, secured by heavy magnetic clamps. At the heart of the ship sat the quantum folding drive, or QFT. The Galactic conquered. The massive alien government that controlled all known space had strict rules about faster-than-light travel. Their laws were simple, clear, and designed to keep everyone in line. FTL travel had to be slow. It had to be predictable. And most importantly, it had to be measurable, leaving a visible distortion in space so that others could track it. These laws ensured that no new power could rise quickly, and that all major resources could be controlled from the Concorde's center. Distance was their main tool of control. The QFD ignored every single one of those laws. It did not create a distortion. It created an immediate fold. It didn't speed the ship up. It erased the distance completely. It was not travel, but simple repositioning. It was instantaneous, non-observable, and utterly illegal in the eyes of the galaxy. "Clamps off," Laura murmured, her voice scratchy. The heavy metal arms retracted with a low hiss. The Icarus floated free. Alex took a deep breath and moved his hand over the control panel. On the main holographic display, a star chart of the local sector glowed brightly. He pointed to a star system exactly 100 light-years away. For a conquered ship, that trip would take several months even using their regulated FTL jumps. For the Icarus, it should take 0 seconds. Alex entered the target data and looked at the core temperature reading for the QFD. It was stable, impossibly so. The system was asking for a small burst of energy, barely enough to boil a large pot of water, to perform a jump that should require the energy of a supernova. This was the central heresy of the QFD. It broke the law of energy conservation. He keyed the activation sequence. "Jumping now." Laura squeezed her eyes shut, then opened them wide, forcing herself to watch every detail. On the main screen, the ship's status light turned from green to amber. The energy reading spiked and instantly flatlined. There was no flash. There was no sound. There was no ripple in the air of the lab. No shake. Not even the slightest hum. The ship, the Icarus, simply was not there anymore. Laura felt her heart stop for a second. The ship's sensor return was completely gone. The lab's high-speed cameras showed only empty space where the ship had been a moment before. There was no trace, no energy signature, no gravitational echo. It was as if the ship had been deleted from reality. This broke the law of observable velocity. They waited. Silence filled the lab. It felt like an hour, though only 3 seconds had passed on the timer. Then, just as silently and just as impossibly, the Icarus blinked back into existence. It sat exactly where it had been a moment ago. On the screen, the ship's internal camera showed the pilot, a drone, still strapped in, with no sign of movement or time having passed. Alex pointed a shaking finger at the navigational readout. The ship's current location confirmed it had successfully traveled to the distant star system and then returned instantly. The round trip, 200 light-years, had taken 3 seconds of real time. The time measured inside the ship, 0 seconds. This broke the law of causality, for the ship had arrived at its destination before the light of its departure could possibly have been observed. The sheer, silent impossibility of what they had just done hung in the air. They had not just bent the rules of physics. They had shattered the Concorde's political power base with a whisper. Laura and Alex stared at the now docked ship, their exhaustion replaced by a profound, cold sense of awe and terrified realization. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity was the reason why. The successful return of the Icarus to Earth orbit gave Dr. Alex Finch and engineer Laura Bell only a moment of shock before the work started again. The test was over. The theory was proven. Now came the hardest part, dealing with the galaxy. We have the proof, Laura said, staring at the empty space where the ship had just been. 200 light years in 3 seconds. The Conquered will try to study this for 1,000 years and still not understand it. Alex nodded, rubbing his tired eyes. Exactly. We can't hide it. If we try to hide it, they will just take it later. We have to show them the new rules now. We have to force the issue. The target they chose was the Concord's central hub, the city of crystal and light that sat at the core of the galaxy. For any other species, reaching the hub was a journey of lifetimes. It was a place of old power, built on the idea that the journey itself was part of the worship. Only those species approved by the Concord were allowed to make the long, slow, acceptable FTL journey. Humanity was not approved, and they were tired of waiting their turn. The Icarus, now fully crewed with a small team including Security Chief Kevin Chen and Communications Officer Chloe Green, prepared for the longest jump. The engineers had put Alex's quantum folding math onto a dedicated ship computer. Now it was just a matter of putting the coordinates in and trusting the physics. Alex and Laura stood on the bridge of the Icarus as the ship left Earth's orbit, heading for the edge of the solar system. The last instruction was simple. Put the center of the Galactic Concord into the navigation system and press the button. Chloe, the communications officer, had one job: to make sure the arrival was noticed immediately. She would send a simple, brief signal once they stabilized. Here we go, Laura said, her voice steady now. She pressed the jump key. Once again, there was no sound, no flash, and no sign of movement. One moment they saw the familiar stars of the outer solar system, and the next they saw a completely different view. The view outside the main viewport was almost too much to take in. They were hovering over a structure that defied description. It was a vast, glittering complex of structures built around a large, manufactured star, all glowing with soft, controlled energy. This was the Concord hub. The sheer size of the place was overwhelming, making the Icarus feel like a dust particle. We are here, Alex whispered. The trip had taken about 3 real minutes for the jump calculation and 0 seconds for the travel. No one in the galaxy could arrive so fast. Chloe immediately sent the standardized Concord first contact signal. The response was not what they expected. A small fleet of Concord patrol vessels, sleek and frighteningly alien, appeared instantly around the Icarus. Their weapons were not raised, but their positions were aggressive, like dogs circling prey. Then, a massive holographic image appeared right in front of the ship's viewport, showing a being of pure, perfect crystal. This was the Varax ambassador, the voice of the Conquered. The Varax were ancient, and their rule was absolute. The ambassador's voice was cold, sharp, and sounded like breaking glass, translated perfectly into English. Intruder vessel. Identify your unauthorized FTL vector. Laura stepped forward. We are the species known as humanity, from the 3rd planet of a yellow sun. We are here to apply for full membership and offer a new path to the stars. The crystalline ambassador did not change its expression. Its entire body seemed to stiffen. We asked for the vector. Your ship's arrival did not conform to the laws of velocity. There was no predictable trace. Your energy signature was non-existent. Explain the source of this travel violation. Alex took over the mic. The source is the quantum folding drive. It does not use velocity. It removes the distance. It follows the rules of physics that the Concord chooses to ignore. A low, collective noise came from the Concord fleet's comms, a sound that was less anger and more pure, existential terror. The Varax ambassador stared at the Icarus with its multifaceted eyes. This technology is defined as a Class Omega existential threat. It violates the 3 core tenets of cosmic order: observable velocity, energy conservation, and causality. A ship that cannot be traced is a weapon that cannot be stopped. A technology that breaks the laws of energy is a danger to the very fabric of reality. The ambassador's voice hardened further, becoming an official decree. Humanity has committed an act of galactic heresy. Your technology is too dangerous to exist. The holographic image of the Varax raised one crystal arm. The Concord issues an immediate ultimatum. You will surrender the ship, the drive, and the entire crew for processing. The schematics for the drive will be destroyed. If you comply, your home planet, Earth, will be placed under observation and spared immediate annihilation. If you refuse, we will assume hostile intent. Laura looked at Alex. They had known this might happen. But the suddenness and the cold, absolute nature of the verdict were stunning. Answer now. Human vessel, the Varax demanded. Laura pressed the transmit button one last time. Her voice was firm, though her hands were shaking. "We built this to free ourselves from distance. We will not surrender. We refuse your laws and we refuse your terms." The Varax ambassador dissolved the hologram, and the circle of alien warships immediately began to glow, their weapon systems locking onto the tiny Icarus. The moment of diplomacy was over. Humanity's silent leap had become a deafening declaration of war. The small ship, the Icarus, jumped away from the Concord hub just as the alien patrol ships fired their first warning shots. The tiny capsule blinked out, reappeared 500 miles away, and jumped again. It was a nervous, quick dance of impossible motion, but it worked. The alien ships, built for slow, grand voyages, could not keep up with the instant folding of space. They were built for power. The Icarus was built for pure speed. Alex Finch, the physicist, sat strapped in a chair on the bridge. He watched the star charts spin wildly as Laura Bell, the engineer, expertly keyed in the rapid-fire jump sequences. They were putting weeks of distance between themselves and the center of galactic power in a matter of minutes. "They know where Earth is," Laura said, her hands never leaving the controls. "The ambassador told us. The main fleet is already coming for our planet. Their ships are slow, but their fleet is huge. It will take them weeks to get to our home system, but they will come." Alex knew she was right. They had won the first battle by showing the jump worked, but they had lost the war before it even began. One small ship could not fight a galactic empire. "We need a place to hide," Alex said. "The Rim. We go to the quiet, forgotten systems near the edge of the galaxy. The Concorde doesn't care about those places." The Icarus made its main jump, a massive fold of space that sent them soaring thousands of light years in an instant. When they stabilized near a desolate cold star, the crew finally allowed themselves to breathe. In the ship's control room, Kevin Chen, the security chief, looked at Chloe Green, the communications officer. They were the ones who had to figure out the political problem. "They called it heresy," Kevin said, shaking his head. "They said it breaks the fabric of reality. But why? It's just physics. Why do they fear fast travel so much?" Chloe was hunched over her console, surrounded by floating holographic screens showing data dumps from the Concorde hub. When the Icarus was briefly near the hub, Chloe had used the energy spike of the QFD to quickly pull every unencrypted file and every weakly protected communication stream she could find. It was a massive flood of alien data, mostly just boring trade reports and fleet movements, but Chloe was looking for a pattern. "It's all about control, Kevin," Chloe said, not looking up. "Every single trade route, every mining operation, every planetary development schedule is calculated based on the fact that travel takes months or years. The time is the lock. The distance is the cage." Kevin started looking through ancient historical documents. The Concorde was thousands of years old, and its history was full of gaps and edited facts. He started cross-referencing the official history with the secret maintenance logs he found buried deep in the data. "Look at this." Kevin pointed to a line of glowing alien script on his screen, a reference to the Unbinding Wars. It's barely a footnote in the official record. But here in the fleet maintenance files, it's a time of great fear. Chloe decrypted the old logs. The text, translated into simple English, was chilling. It talked about a time centuries ago when fast FTL was common. It was slightly less powerful than the QFD, but it was fast enough to connect any planet in a few weeks. During the Unbinding Wars, the small planets used that speed to form their own trade groups and refused to send their rare materials to the Concorde hub. The key to the lie was simple. The Concorde did not make slow FTL mandatory because the fast one was dangerous to space. They made it mandatory because the fast one was dangerous to their power. Kevin scrolled through resource allocation treaties. "Look, this metal, tricobalt, essential for their war machines. It only comes from planets in the outer spiral arm. On the slow Concorde schedule, it takes 1 year to ship a load back to the hub. That 1 year of travel time gives the Concorde complete control over who gets the metal and when. It forces those outer planets to remain dependent and poor." Chloe slammed her hand down on the console, her eyes wide with sudden understanding. "The energy conservation law, the one Alex broke? That was a lie too. It's not about reality. It's about making sure no one builds a drive cheap enough for everyone to use. The slow FTL ships are incredibly complex and cost a fortune. It keeps the technology out of the hands of the small client species." They had found the truth. The Galactic Concorde was not a protector of cosmic order. It was a dictatorship built on the manipulation of distance and the control of information. The slow, measurable FTL was the perfect tool for empire. Kevin and Chloe quickly took the findings to Alex and Laura. The whole crew gathered around the screens reading the proof of the ancient lie. "So," Laura said, a cold determination in her voice, "we don't just have a ship that breaks their laws. We have the evidence that their laws are a weapon against their own people. We can't fight their fleet, but we can destroy their foundation." Alex looked at the vast star fields outside the viewport. "We need to give the galaxy the schematics of the QFD, and we need to give them the history of the Concorde's lie. We have to make it go viral before that big, slow fleet reaches Earth." The new plan was set. The Icarus would become a broadcasting station, and they would use the QFD not for travel, but to spread the greatest truth the galaxy had ever heard. The Icarus hid near a cold, dead star system at the galaxy's edge. They had chosen this desolate spot because the Galactic Concorde never looked here. Time was running out. Kevin Chen, the security chief, was on the tactical console, watching the deep space sensors with a growing sense of dread. "They're here," he announced, his voice tight. It wasn't just a patrol. It was the main enforcement fleet, a shadow stretching across space composed of thousands of blocky, massive warships. The Concord fleet was slow, true, but they were also immense. They had taken weeks to cross the distance, but now they were a wall of metal and weapons, ready to crush the one small ship that dared to break their universe. Alex Finch, the physicist, and Laura Bell, the engineer, were in the engine room, modifying the quantum folding drive. They were not preparing for a simple jump. They were using the QFD's impossible power to open small, momentary folds of space, turning the drive into the galaxy's most powerful, illegal antenna. "I've adjusted the core to handle rapid cycling," Alex said, wiping oil from his hands. "The energy spikes will be massive, and we have to jump instantly before the aliens can lock on. We will be materializing and disappearing so fast we won't even register as a target, only a blur." Laura was working with Chloe Green, the communications officer. Chloe had compressed the 200 years of secret Concorde history and the complete simplified QFD schematics into one tiny, dense data packet. It was the key to freedom for 1,000 species and the death warrant for the Concorde's empire. "The packet is ready," Chloe called out. "It's coded for automatic decryption on contact. Anyone with a basic receiver will get the blueprint and the truth." Laura took the helm. "Then let's give them the biggest broadcast in history." A massive holographic image of the Vrax ambassador appeared again, shimmering in the void outside their viewport. It was huge, dwarfing the tiny Icarus. "Surrender the heresy now, human vessel. Your defiance ends here. This is your final warning before total destruction." Laura's reply was quick. "The final warning is for you." She initiated the jump sequence. The Icarus began to move, not in a straight line, but in a chaotic, blinking pattern. Jump, stop, jump, stop. The ship was folding and unfolding space hundreds of times per minute. It was too fast for the Concorde's targeting systems, which were built for ships that followed polite, predictable flight paths. The massive alien fleet opened fire. Lines of brilliant blue and red energy streaked across the dark space, missing the Icarus by fractions of a second. The void filled with the violent light of an attempted execution. The ship's small hull shook with the near misses. "They are firing blind," Kevin shouted over the noise. "They are trying to fence us in." "Stick to the jump pattern, Laura." Laura held the controls steady, forcing the ship through the complex sequence of micro-jumps. Every time the ship materialized, even for less than a second, Chloe hit the broadcast key. The data packet was being shoved through the momentary folds of space created by the QFD. Alex was struggling to control the drive in the engine room. "Energy core is spiking. I can't hold this speed for long, Laura. We are overloading the containment fields." "We need 30 more seconds, Alex," Laura yelled back. The Concorde fleet realized that their main weapons were useless. They began to launch smaller, faster fighters, ships that could cover the tiny distances between the Icarus's materialization points. Kevin saw the small ships approaching. "Fighters inbound. 20 seconds to impact." Alex gritted his teeth, forcing the core to cycle faster. The cabin lights flickered wildly. The Icarus was less a ship and more a hyperspeed, impossible blur, stitching the fabric of the galaxy with truth. Chloe watched her console. The transmission signal, showing the data packet being successfully sent, climbed rapidly. 20%, 50%, 90%. 10 seconds to impact, Laura. Kevin warned. "I need 5 more seconds." Chloe screamed, holding her breath. The lead Concorde fighter materialized just ahead of the Icarus's next jump point, ready to fire. "Finished," Chloe shouted, throwing her hands up from the keyboard. The data was out. The ultimate schematics and the ultimate truth had reached hundreds of systems in the instant the Concorde had taken to fire their first volley. On the Concorde comms channel, the loud breaking glass voice of the Virax ambassador suddenly cut out, replaced by a confused silence. Kevin pointed at a tactical display. Their targeting systems are failing. The fighters are slowing down. The fleet is pausing. They're in shock. Laura didn't wait for them to recover. She set the final, deepest coordinates to a place no one had ever charted, a vast black nebula far beyond any known Concorde territory. We gave them the tools. Now we get out. The Icarus made its biggest, quietest jump of all, vanishing completely. They left the powerful, confused Concorde fleet behind, no longer cornered but the ship that had changed everything. The Icarus materialized deep inside the vast, cold emptiness of the dark nebula. It was a place where light barely touched. A perfect hiding spot for a ship that had become the most wanted thing in the galaxy. The crew turned off almost all power, letting the ship drift silently. Alex Finch, Laura Bell, Kevin Chen, and Chloe Green gathered in the dim light of the bridge. They were safe, but they were alone, millions of light years from home. The drive was quiet. The schematics were gone from their computers. All the knowledge they had used was now scattered across the stars. Did it work? Alex asked, staring at the empty space where the Concorde fleet had been. Did the signal get through before they shut down the network? Chloe, still exhausted from the hyperspeed transmission, managed a tired smile. She pointed to a small, isolated data receiver, tuned to the oldest, simplest frequencies used by the galaxy's forgotten species. The screen showed a flood of small, desperate messages. They were not official fleet communications. They were private, fearful, and then quickly they turned excited. A message from a species called the Zidar, who lived deep in the central spiral arm. The blueprint is confirmed. We have the components. We start building now. Distance is dead. A message from a client planet called the Orion 6 settlement. The schematics are public. The lie is exposed. The fleet sent to observe us has stopped moving. They say they have to check the data. And then a simple, powerful message from their own home, Earth. We are safe. The main conquered fleet stopped at the edge of the solar system. They are no longer an invasion, but a confused patrol. The world thanks you. We are already building. The full impact of their actions sank in. They had not fought a battle. They had started a revolution. The Concorde's power was built on control of time and distance, and humanity had made both irrelevant with the whisper of a folding drive. The immense, slow fleet that was supposed to crush Earth could not fight against 1,000 new, tiny ships that could appear and disappear instantly. The Concorde could no longer enforce its rules when anyone, anywhere, could build a QFD and jump away from their control in a second. The old galactic law had been broken forever. So what now? Kevin asked, looking out at the cold, beautiful nebula. We can't go back to Earth. The Concorde will never stop looking for the original ship and crew. We are a symbol now, and symbols are dangerous. Laura nodded. We are exiles. But we are free exiles. She reached out and touched a control panel that was now just a simple chart display. The galaxy is no longer an empire. It's an ocean now, and we have the only fully tested boat. They knew their future. They would live on the edges of space, charting the new paths. Using the Icarus to explore the parts of the universe the Concorde had always kept hidden. They had the greatest map of all, the ability to go anywhere instantly. Alex spent the next few months monitoring the ripple effect. Small, long-forgotten species were suddenly communicating across huge distances. Trade routes based on slow, regulated travel collapsed overnight. The old massive fleets became slow, expensive targets, and the Vrax ambassador was heard only once more, giving a desperate, defeated speech about the return to cosmic chaos. The Galactic Concorde did not fall with a war. It fell apart in pieces as every client planet realized the lock on their cage was gone. They simply folded space and left. One evening, Chloe received one last coded message. It was a picture from home. It showed a brand new, fully operational quantum folding drive, shining brightly in a new human-built space station. Humanity had not only survived, they had changed the rules of the entire cosmos. Laura looked at the picture and smiled. She set a new course into the dark, uncharted space beyond the nebula. The map is empty, she announced. But for us, the map has just begun. The Icarus, the small ship that had broken every galactic law, folded space one last time, heading into a future of infinite possibility. knowing that the rest of the galaxy was now folding space right alongside them.